All right, I'd like to call to order the working session for Tuesday, January 27th. Just as a reminder, the meetings of the Mechanicsburg Area School District Board of Directors are being recorded and live streamed for the purpose of transparency and increased public access. The live stream, along with the recordings from previously held meetings, can be found on the school board's YouTube channel. The first item that we have is community recognition.
Yes, annually we are excited to have our friends from the Simpson Library here. And this year is a particular treat for us because we get to enjoy not only hearing from some updates from a wonderful Mrs. Sue Erdman, but also a chance to celebrate her career at Simpson and all that she's done for our community. So we're going to let her and do her usual sharing of the great things happening at Simpson, and also be able to introduce the new librarian there at Simpson, Miss Lizzie Seidel. And we'll take a few moments to share some things from our end as well for your retirement. But take it away, Ms. Erdman.
All right, thank you. It's always nice when you're actually on the agenda. I come in previous meetings where you have your public comment period and the timer pops up on the screen. And that's very intimidating for me, but it certainly
You take as much time as
forces me to stay focused, to try to always stay within the time parameters that I've been given. But I will be brief here tonight. So it's been 29 years since I joined the staff of the Simpson Library. Probably it was maybe 34 back then. And I had no idea what to really expect, other than that this was really the next progression in my professional development, moving from an assistant director position and moving to a new library. I had no idea all that it would entail and how much I learned, but it has been a great career, something I will be forever grateful for. You know, when you love what you do, it does not feel like work. You know it is work, and some days it's really exhausting and emotional and tiring work, but not every day is like that. And in the end, you look back and you feel good about what you have done. And a lot of you at this table, as board members, get that satisfaction from the work that you do, serving as a board member, and certainly your administration, all of the lives that you touch through the year, with all of the students that you see. You watch them grow up from kindergarten through high school and graduate and go on to wonderful, exciting, and beneficial careers. So the work you do is important as well. One thing I will say about the Mechanicsburg School District during my time at Simpson Library is your support has been unwavering and constant. Not something you can often say about someone, but unwavering and constant. From the time I started at the library, Mechanicsburg School District was putting an appropriation in your budget in support of Simpson Library. That has increased over the years a couple times and is at an all-time high for us right now, which we truly, truly appreciate. The commitment you have with a $1 stipend of $5 per student to support Simpson Library. One thing I do want to call out, shout out, and say thank you for is your support of your own school libraries, and the fact that you have librarians on your staff and you have library aides in your schools when the librarian is at another school. Not all of the school districts in the state or in the country see that value. And I commend you and I thank you for that and hope that that never changes. Books for kids are so important. You as educators and school board members know how important reading is, how important literacy is, how important getting books into kids' hands is. And that's why you need libraries, and that's why you need people to run your library. So just thank you for that. So my comments are mostly just the thanks and the appreciation for what you have done for Simpson Library over the years, but really what you do on a much broader level through the district, which really has even broader impacts down the road. You may see and you may never see. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you now Elizabeth Seidel. She is our new executive director. She started on November the 10th, and I was fortunate and honored to have the pleasure to work with her in the office until the end of December, and still have some knowledge to transfer over to her. And it's pretty daunting to think about all of the things to tell her, especially the things that only happen once a year. So we're still working on that knowledge transfer, and that's going to continue for a while. So Elizabeth, come on out.
Hi everybody, yes, my name is Lizzie Seidel. I'm the new executive director. I'm happy to be here and to report on some of the things that Simpson has been doing with your support over the year, but over the last couple years. So I did bring a handout for you, for your reference. So specifically our partnership with the Mechanicsburg Area School District. We visit daycare and preschool centers, including pre-K counts classes. Our Youth Services Coordinator, Danette, her contact information is on the sheet for you. She'll actually be coming to your back to school night tomorrow. So just kind of an example of like some of the partnerships and the ways that we work together, and we're very excited to be there. Our 2025 Summer Learning Challenge theme was Color Our World. We had over 750 children, 250 teens, and if you're curious, 400 adults participated in this year's program. So that's kiddos coming into the library and reading, preventing that summer slide that I know we're all really concerned about, attending programs, and just keeping up learning throughout the summer. In addition, over 1,400 people of all ages participated in Go Cumberland. This is a partnership we have with WellSpan where folks can visit area parks and complete hikes in addition to all the other things that I mentioned for summer learning. So just another way to learn. This year's Summer Learning Challenge theme is Unearth a Story. So I think there's going to be a lot of dinosaur programs and like archaeology focused kind of stuff. So you can really look forward to that. We've got some exciting things planned for that. The PA One Book Early Literacy selection for this year is The Great Cookie Kerfluffle by Jessica Shaw and illustrated by Pauline Gregory. And so our Youth Services Coordinator and team will be putting together programming around that book. So you can look forward to that coming as well. Some of you may have gotten the chance to see our new Learning and Book Sale Center on Allen Street. We renovated an Agway building with a capital campaign that we're wrapping up of about $2 million. So that is to meet the needs of the community with new programming space, expanded programming space, meeting room space, things like that. So if you haven't gotten a chance to come see it, please do. I'm happy to, my information is in your packet if you ever want a chance to come see it or see the library or talk to me about any library things. That's there for you. And then of course databases through Cumberland County Library System provide many resources available for free to Simpson Library card holders. Something that's not on here that I do want to mention is that your librarians at your schools, especially in the high school, have really been pushing library card signups through the public library. And I asked Danette for the numbers on those, and she said all she could find was 67, but she knows it's at least double that library cards that we've gotten through those efforts. So we just want to thank you especially for that, because the partnership really is important. I want to echo what Sue said. Mechanicsburg School District really donates and supports their library in a way that I don't think any other library in the county can say. If Mechanicsburg was, if not our top donor, one of our top donors of 2025. And I just really appreciate that support. The staff really appreciate that support because we know how important it is for everybody to work together for our students and for our community. So I just want to thank you for that again while I'm up here. Can't be said enough. Also in your package, just for your reference, is our annual report for 2024. I know those numbers are a little outdated. We're working on 2025's annual report, so you can have kind of the numbers and see again how your donation has impacted the community. I'll get that to you as soon as I have it. We're working on it now. Our strategic plan for 2025 to 2027, so you can see what we're working on, what the board has identified as priorities in our community, and what I'll be focusing on a lot for the next couple years. And then information about joining our friends group, which is like another support group that helps with the library, does our quarterly book sales and our new book sale center, those things. and then just more information on our capital campaign. Again, my card is in here. Please don't hesitate to reach out at any point if you want to talk to me about the library and about how we can partner more together, and about how your donation is making a great impact in your community. But thank you for your time. If there's questions now, I'll take them. Otherwise, you have my information. And I'm looking forward to working with everybody moving forward. So.
When I first came on 18 years ago, I wasn't that familiar with how active the library was with the school, and to see over the years the benefits that both organizations have been able to draw from each other. As you said, the always anxiousness about the kids losing stuff going over the summer and not staying with reading. The programs that were put together, the efforts that were done, reaching out to the kids. I had an opportunity this past summer to go to one of the celebrations at the end of one of the programs, and to see the kids and the excitement for the levels that they were able to accomplish just reminded me how important reading is to them, and how it's that connection that the parents, that the kids, that they all have just with the books, and the great work that you and the library have done to continue to facilitate that, and how important it is that kids read, and how foundational that is to so much of the learning that's out there. It's just thankful for the relationship that we've fostered, and hopefully will continue to foster for many, many years.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the efforts you put in the preschool kids. One of my best friends takes her grandson every Wednesday night, it's the biggest thrill that they have all week. So I know you put a lot of emphasis on the preschool kids. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very much.
So Mrs. Erdman, I would echo a little bit of what Ms. Morgan just talked about. For me, when you talk about the important work that we do here as a school district, and you spoke very, very kindly about that, the reality is that the work that we do comes out of the heart that you have put into the programs at the Simpson Library. When I think of my three kids, those three, their first formal education experiences weren't here at Mechanicsburg. They weren't at a preschool. They were sitting in rhyme time with Ms. Black and being able to sing songs and read stories and get to know what it was like to be in a community of learners, and being able to just take their first steps towards kindergarten. And in fact, then they even participated in the kindergarten readiness program that was further done there to prepare them for all that was ahead. So the building blocks that you have fostered through your hard work there at Simpson is what really has created a foundation for us to be a great school district. So I can't personally thank you enough, and I'm sure the board would agree. So I'll share with you a more official resolution here from the board. Resolution of appreciation, Mrs. Sue Erdman on her retirement. Whereas Sue Erdman has completed a long and successful career in service to public libraries, and whereas Mrs. Erdman worked in both the Bosler Memorial Library and the Joseph T. Simpson Public Library in a career spanning 40 years, and whereas Mrs. Erdman has served as the executive director of the Joseph T. Simpson Public Library for the last 30 years, whereas in her role as executive director, Mrs. Erdman has been recognized with various awards and accolades highlighting her service to both the library and other community organizations. And whereas the Mechanicsburg Area School District values the countless hours, diligent work, and positive leadership Mrs. Erdman has provided in service to the district's students and programs. And resolved that we, the Mechanicsburg Area School Board of Directors, at its meeting on January 27th, 2026, acknowledge with appreciation the dedicated service of Mrs. Sue Erdman to our community and schools. We extend our gratitude and best wishes to her and her family for continued success in the years to come.
So one final comment I have for you, one of the best things that you could do for Simpson Library, for whatever public library, well, I should take that back, you all live in the Mechanicsburg School District. So one of the best things you could do for Simpson Library is talk about the library programs to people. The sad truth is, not everybody knows they have a library. It's free to use the library. The library's open 7 days a week during the school year. And it has thousands of programs a year that your kids could come to for free. And so marketing is a big priority for this coming year. It is every year, but a more focused approach on marketing. Be an advocate for Simpson Library is one of the best things that you can do. Talk about, you know, I took my kids here when they were little, or I'm taking, my neighbor's taking her grandchild on Wednesday night. We've got programming in the morning, we've got programming at night. So be a library advocate. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to budget and finance, and the first item we will have is a presentation of the audited financial statements for the year ending June 30th, 2025. Mr. Logan?
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. This evening we have Mr. Zaharovich with us from Boyer and Ritter, and maybe a colleague as well.
Yeah, joining me this evening is Mar Pecco. He's a senior associate with the firm. He was responsible for the day-to-day activities of the audit. So if you have any difficult questions, I'm going to refer you to him. But otherwise, as Greg said, my name is Sinai Zaharovich. I'm a principal with Boyer and Ritter. I do go by Z, so if you do have questions for me, just holler Z. But ultimately, I have, like I said, responsibility for this audit each year. Glad to be here again to present the results of another audit for you. So I think everyone's got the packet in front of you, the blue booklet, the financial report, and we're going to get right into it and try to get through this presentation pretty quickly. And you got some other things on the agenda. So I'm going to go to the first page right after the table of contents. It's titled the Independent Auditor's Report. So this is one of 3 auditor's reports that we issue within this reporting package. This one being on the financial statements, the other 2 being related to the compliance audit, also known as a single audit that we perform. And that's done anytime an entity spends more than $750,000 of federal money. This year, the district spent about $3.6 million, so it met that threshold requiring that single audit. The financial audit, well, that's required by the Pennsylvania Department of Education for you. It requires it of all districts in the Commonwealth, of course. Also, the bondholders of the bonds that have been issued within those agreements. It's spelled out that the district has continuing disclosure requirements which require an audited financial statement each year to be provided to the public. Finally, you all, members of the board here, may not require an audit, but I think we certainly appreciate knowing that the district's financials are in good order, and I think the audit provides you that assurance. So looking at, hopefully everyone's made it to that page that I referenced, looking at that independent auditor's report, the first part of that is really the most important. It's the opinions. It's kind of the results of the audit, the financial audit, that is, for this year. And in the second paragraph of that section, we note that the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects, right? So this is what we in audit speak call an unmodified opinion. To you all, it's a clean opinion, right? It's really the best possible results that an audit firm can issue when we conduct an audit. It's certainly what you would expect to see, what you've seen in the past as well. So right off the bat, job well done. And we'll kind of continue that trend with the other 2, but bear with me as I kind of get through the other things I wanted to cover with you. So after that, basis for opinions, basically just identifying the standards that we're required to follow when we conduct an audit. Same standards we follow every year, same standards we follow for any entity that we conduct an audit for. After that, the change in accounting principle. Not something we include every year, but this year we're calling attention to an implementation of the new GASB standard. GASB is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. It's the standard setting body for any governmental entity that prepares financial statements. So this year, GASB 101, in relation to compensated absences, was implemented. This required what we call a reevaluation as well as a recalculation of that compensated absence liability that's reported within the district's financial report. Compensated absences, of course, are your employees' accumulated leave, vacation time, personal time, sick time, that we have to put a value of what that might be. So, and I'll point out another page in the report that shows us more information on that. Moving on to the second page. At the top, we discuss the responsibilities of the management team. That's for the preparation of the financial statements, as well as the internal controls over the financial transactions. Right? After that, auditor's responsibilities. What do we do? Right? Why are we here? So we're responsible for obtaining reasonable assurance that the financial statements are accurately presented in all material respects, as I noted earlier. Of course, our ultimate responsibility is to issue this audit report that we're discussing right now. After that, we'll lay out a few bullet points basically in performing the audit, some standards that we have to follow as we do so. The third page, referencing the required supplementary information and supplementary information that's included in the report. And then that last section, the other reporting required by government auditing standards. It's really just a reference to the second of the 3 independent auditors reports that we issue. That's more towards the back of the financial report, and I'll get to that as soon as we get through a couple of other pages that I want to highlight for you that I think are of importance to the board members here. First section following that auditor's report is the management's discussion analysis. So if you flip to the next page, this is, I would say, a great summary of the financial position of the district for the year. It includes both prior year and current year numbers, so it shows you kind of a change. And then it also includes explanations as to why some of those changes occurred. Certainly recommend all board members to look at, I think it's roughly 10 or so pages. Read through that, it'll help you get a good understanding of the financial position for the year ended June 30, 2025 in this case that we did not. From here, I am going to skip a few pages and head to page 14. So this is what we call the statement of net position, essentially the balance sheet for the district. It includes both the assets, liabilities, fund balance from each of the funds that the district reports on, and then it adds on to it some long-term assets like your capital assets, your buildings, equipment, and others, as well as the long-term liabilities like your bonds, pension liabilities, OPEB liabilities. So more of a holistic view of what the district's financial position looks like at the end of the year. After that, it's another one, government-wide statement, the statement of activities. It's formatted in a way that complies with the standards. It's a little bit cumbersome to look at, so I typically skip over this one and lead you all to page 18, I believe it is. So page 18, this is what we call the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. So that statement of activities that I kind of just glossed over, if you will, it's a combination of these items here, these columns or the funds that are reported on this page, right? The first one we have, the general fund. That's your main operating fund. It accounts for all the day-to-day receipts, disbursements, payroll transactions. Looking at the kind of the last line of that page, for the general fund, you see the fund balance number, roughly 17.3 million at the end of the year. Next to it, the capital reserve fund, right? So money that has been accumulated over the years for capital projects is reported here. Most of the revenue from the capital reserve fund is some investment earnings. They're found at the top in the revenue section, and then typically what we see is a transfer from the general fund into the capital reserve, and this year we had a transfer of 1.6 million going into the capital reserve. Ending fund balance on this one about 9.3 million, right? An increase from last year, as you see there, roughly 500,000. Next to it, the bond construction funds. These are the capital project funds. So the district has issued debt over the years to fund various projects throughout the district at the various buildings. And that's what we account for in these bond construction funds. Biggest item to note here, down in that other financing sources and uses section, there's a proceeds from the issuance of long-term debt. So as has occurred in the past, the district issued a series of 2024, I believe it was, for just under $10 million to fund those projects.
I think, just as a reminder, as we talk about that, that really was the last issuance of that financing plan, and so it's kind of showing up here as we continue to kind of wrap up the high school project.
Student-sponsored activity. Sorry, go ahead. You good? Okay. Next to it, the student-sponsored activity funds. A small fund in comparison to the previous ones we discussed, but the various activity funds of the district that that the students are involved in, the band, chorus, and things like that. And then debt service. There's a debt service line, 9.8 million. The principal and interest that has been paid this past year on those bonds that have been issued. After that, we're going to go to page 20.
Z, maybe if I, just for a second there, back on 18, just to tie this to some conversations we previously had. So in that leftmost column, general fund, you might remember at the end of November, we talked about where our position for 24-25 was landing, and the fact that ultimately we were going to realize the debt that, or the deficit that we had budgeted, which was about $2.3 million. So there in 18, when you look at that column, general fund, you can see net change in fund balances. That's that 2.331912. That was what we had budgeted for, and that's what we ultimately ended up realizing. So you can see, because we obviously had to take that deficit then out of fund balance, our fund balance at the beginning of the year was 19.6, but then we drew that down to the 17.2. So that's where those numbers are coming from. And again, as another part of that conversation, you might remember that we talked about the fact that it was going to be 2.3 because we did want to make sure that we were still funding our capital reserve fund. So that's the 1.6 that Z pointed out in the next column that got added to the capital reserve fund, so that we make sure that we continue to have a healthy fund there to do some of these smaller projects. So again, just to tie that back to some previous conversations of what Z's talking about, where we went.
Okay. Page 20 is where we're heading next. So kind of switch gears here. We go from the governmental funds, and then we look at what is reported here, which is a proprietary fund. It's the district's cafeterias, kind of all brought together into this food service fund. Right, first off, the statement of net position, again, the balance sheet, assets, liabilities, essentially net position, a couple other items in there due to those pesky people at GASB that require us to report some various things like the deferred outflows and inflows related to pension and OPEB liabilities. Really, that's just financial reporting jargon, I would say at times. Doesn't affect what you're doing on a day-to-day basis over there with the cafeterias. And after that is the food service funds, essentially income statement, the revenues and the expenses. Middle of that page, operating loss, you'll see about 2.1 million, consistent with previous years. And then just below that, there's state sources and federal sources. Those are those state and federal subsidies that that come into the district to help alleviate some of that loss there. Essentially, all of it, and then a resulting change in that position of positive 200,000 for the food service fund. Those are the statements. The next section are footnotes, roughly 40 pages, providing some more detail on the items reported on the financial statements that we just kind of looked at briefly here. Not going to go over all 40 pages, but I am going to quickly jump. Jump to page 37. And to point out here, once again, something that we don't include every year, but due to that new GASB standard, there's the restatement of beginning net position area with a little chart in there identifying a restatement of about 1.5 million. That's essentially the increase of that compensated absence liability due to the new methodology, which we had to calculate that liability both as of June 30, 2024, as well as June 30, 2025. Right? So, new GASB standard, always got to do a little extra work, results in some changes within the financial report. Next item to touch on would be on page 45. So 45 reports the long-term obligations of the district. In that first table at the top, first line item, general obligation debt, the bonds and the notes that we've mentioned already. You see the June 30, 2025 balance of those. And then the second table on that page is that individual listing of all those debt issuances from all the years prior. And you can see, I counted them over, there's about 10 of them outstanding as of June 30, 25, with payments going out to 2051 for those.
And one of these, I believe it was series of 2018, the ones that had the callable date on November 2025. I think that's the series that we refinanced here this fall after this budget year would have been completed through the audit. But Mike, credit to them too.
That's correct.
Okay. We got about 15 pages of pension and OPEB liability disclosures, actuarial assumptions that go into it, some of the nuances that have to be disclosed based on the standards that were issued for them. I'm going to jump through all that. Just head to page 66 to highlight another piece of information that you all might care about.
Maybe this is a good place to just mention, if I may. I kind of live in this duality, this world duality where there's the government-wide statements and we have to quantify very long-term liabilities like users or compensated absences. And you've heard Z kind of step through that a little bit. Even the pages we've skipped through with OPEB and pension liability, actuaries determine very large numbers, and so you see very big negative numbers. Those are more like the government-wide, when you look at the organization as a whole, a consolidated entity. While those are important, us accountants like that information probably more than the general application of it, where the fund basis financial statements is really where I think our time, attention, and focus lives, not just at Mechanicsburg, but other local school districts, because that is the general fund, that is the
day-to-day
fund, the food service, day-to-day, week-to-week, yearly information. So just some additional context around, you kind of are switching between the government-wide conversations with the fund basis statements as well. So sorry, go ahead.
So on this page, fund balance components, again, we have columns for each of those governmental funds, and then the various categories of fund balance, non-spendable, restricted, committed, and unassigned, ultimately then for the general fund. So just another view of those fund balance numbers. And then what Dr. Bitts and Mr. Longwell were talking about, the November 2025 subsequent event note just under that, the issuance of general obligation bonds series of 2025 for refinancing 2018. All right, skip the required supplementary information title page, and right after that is a budget to actual for the general fund for this previous year. So you can see, as Dr. Betts alluded to, the 2.4 million budgeted deficit, and then next to it, that actual result of the $2.3 million deficit. All right, and we are going to go now to page 74. So this one doesn't have a page number on it, but I'm going to see it right after the supplementary information title page. And it is the second of the three auditors' reports that we issue. As I mentioned, this one is in relation to the compliance audit that we performed. To find kind of what's most relevant to you in this one, it's down at the bottom of the page, that last paragraph and essentially the second to last sentence where we state we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control, right? And along with that, on the following page, the last sentence of the first paragraph indicates that our testing did not disclose any instances of non-compliance in the financial statements. Combination of these two statements that we make in the report is essentially what results in a clean opinion here in this second of 3 reports that we issue. Following that, third and final auditor's report that we issued. So this one, specific to the major federal program that we selected for testing this year. This year we looked at the IDEA cluster, which funds the special education costs here at the district. That one accounted for roughly $800,000 of that $3.6 million that I mentioned earlier. So here again, the first section of that report, the opinion, and the second paragraph of that stating that the district complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements of that program. Really, the best thing we can say is written right there. And then also going along with that, on the third page of this report, which is page 78, the report on the internal control of the compliance. Second paragraph here, again, second to last sentence, noting we did not identify any deficiencies in the internal controls over compliance. Again, unmodified opinion, a clean opinion, the expected results really that we have here. Now, I covered the 3 auditors' reports kind of in a long-winded fashion, but after this evening, if you kind of forget what I said and you're looking to identify quickly, how did we do in the audit? The page following the last one we just discussed, so page 79 is the schedule of findings and questioned costs and includes a summary of the auditor's results. And you kind of just go from top to bottom on that and you see basically everything that I mentioned. The unmodified opinion on the financial statements, no internal control deficiencies in the financial statements, no non-compliance. Then we get to the federal awards, again, no internal control issues, no non-compliance issues. Nice little one-page report card, I would say, for the district. Okay? So you can always turn to that one for a quick reference or a refresher of what we talked about this evening. In addition to the financial report package, there were 2 letters that were inserted. So I'll touch on those briefly. The first being the 2-page document, which is our management comments letter. Really, I just identifying for the management team some upcoming changes. First of those being another new GASB statement that we have to consider and implement for this upcoming year, number 103. It's going to affect the financial report that we presented this evening. Management discussion analysis is going to get impacted slightly. That budget to actual schedule that I mentioned going to have a little impact to it as well. All those things we'll be working with Greg and his team to make sure it gets implemented as it needs to within the report.
103 really will have a bigger impact on some schools that previously didn't present MD&A.
Yes.
Where we presented it, it's just more, we need to make some fine-tuning adjustments.
Fine-tuning to the MD&A, yep. The other item is just in relation to the uniform guidance. A change has finally come to it. It's not going to impact your district. It is going to impact some other entities that we work with. It's raised the threshold for that single audit that I talked about from $750,000 to $1 million. So, right, based on the number that I mentioned earlier, 3.6 this year, I don't expect your district here to fall below that $1 million. So we'll continue doing the compliance audit here for the foreseeable future.
Happy to see the threshold increase,
Yeah.
but I guess if you consider the total increase, and it's been at 750 now for.
It's been a long time. It started at 500,000 if I recall correctly. 750. Yeah.
And I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
for the 15 years I've been in school finance, I feel like most of those years it's probably been sitting at 750.
Yeah.
Maybe when I was in public accounting, it was 500.
I think so, yeah.
So,
Finally a change, but overall maybe not as big of an impact as they thought it would make. The last items to cover with you are in the required communication letter that we issued. That's the 5-page letter. Most important things to highlight in that: no uncorrected misstatements, no disagreements with the management team, no significant issues discussed, and no significant difficulties encountered during the conduct of our audit. I've said in the past, I kind of sound like a broken record, but when it's true, it's something I got to say. Greg and his team, they're quite stellar, great to work with. We're always helpful, cooperative when we're out here, when we're not in the field and we're still asking for stuff. Their team's all over it, getting us what we need, answering all our questions. So certainly appreciate all that, Greg. Probably helps that you were on our side of things back in the day, right? So you understand what it's like. But yeah, thank you for that.
And I appreciate those kind words, Dee, and I think I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention also the importance of what a great, outstanding team we do have. Mrs. Bobby Ely is our business manager. Mrs. Kristen Edwards is our accounting supervisor. And I'm not just saying because Dr. Bitts is here, but he also understands finances at a level that really helps facilitate not just the audit process, but budget review and the dialogue that we can have as an entire team is, I think, really to the benefit of the school district. And I think we're fortunate to have the team we do.
That was the last bit of information I wanted to share. Certainly open to any questions you have this evening.
Over all the years that I've been here too, we usually do get a really clean, stellar report. The last couple of years, I know there's just been little tiny tweaky things that we've been hit on a little bit. So to see that we have a perfect report card this year is good to know, so I appreciate that.
For the new board members, there was a just 60-second elevator pitch on it. There was an issue with procurement specific to our food services that I think first popped up maybe 2 audits ago, and then in the midst of the next year, there was still transition of getting it right, so it did pop up a second time, but that was all clean.
Yeah, it was good to see nothing at all this year.
Well, thank you very much for the report and for walking through that for us, and for the time that you've spent putting it together. It's always good to see these results come out like they do. So thank you. Thank
Appreciate it. Have a great evening.
You as well.
We know Greg's stellar, but we like to hear other people recognize it.
It's a team effort. You have a great team.
This is also one of those times where he's in his element and he's all excited. And you can see it.
I know we're early on in the agenda. We could have talked a little more longer.
That's fine.
We enjoyed the conversation.
So,
We're on a time
All
constraint.
right.
You get 3 minutes, remember?
is it still true? Do you still, the new board members still have a quiz on us at their next event?
Thank you.
I didn't want to share that until
on my
the
part.
end.
Oh, it's supposed to be a pop quiz.
That was supposed to be the pop quiz at the end of, what the meanings of all of this, but we'll get to that.
Sorry.
Thanks.
I believe you're coming.
Thanks, Dr. Leva. Thank you for, okay. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 3.02, the capital reserve fund budget for 2026, 2027.
Yeah. So as the board knows, we are in budget season. It really is for us a year-long process in a lot of ways. We do have different touch points where we come back to the school board to talk about various budgets, and really probably one of the first ones on the docket for the upcoming school year really is the capital reserve fund. In part, that's by design, because for us, some of the things on the capital reserve fund you'll see, or as the board knows, really are summer projects, and so we want to get a good head start on those, and so we try to talk about that list as early as we can in the cycle. Mr. Eric Hoffman is our facilities director. He's kind of the keeper of the capital reserve fund and the budget, if you will, facilitates a lot of good conversations with our 8 building principals, our teacher leaders, our non-instructional administrators to try to gather ultimately what are the needs of the school district. And then he's in dialogue then with Dr. Bitts, myself, Mrs. Ely, to talk about those projects, try to prioritize them in terms of order, and then bring the board some recommendations around what do we see next on the docket for facilities upgrades. One last reminder, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Hoffman to talk more through the budget itself. The listing of items is just a reminder for the board. This is kind of a two-step process in our world. So we like to present the list in its entirety, and then the board will endorse or approve the list. But for each of these items listed on the budget, we'll come back for a second conversation, ultimately having worked through the procurement process, whether we're bidding or getting quotes or things of that nature. So there'll be a second conversation for all of the things you see listed on this budget. But this is the first kind of, here's our next iteration, and let Mr. Hoffman talk through that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to be here to present this list. I'm just going to roll through down the list and interrupt me if you have any questions. The first two are annual allocations. That is annually on the list. It's our capital maintenance and the money we set aside for the turf replacement that we know has a lifespan. So we put aside that $75,000 every year. So that builds up, and when it's time to replace the turf, it's not quite as hateful for us.
That's we often look at that as like a 10 or 12 year-ish.
Yeah, I think there's a range depending on the use of the field. I think generally it's a 8 to 12 year. Ours is doing very well, so I think we're in a good spot right now. So try to build this money up as much as we can.
How old is it now?
That was 2017, I believe. So we're getting there, but it is in good shape.
9
years. So.
And even within that context, the cycle, the setting the money aside is us building the reserve or earmarking enough money to replace it when it needs replaced. But I think something Mr. Hoffman said, and I appreciate his work, Mr. Panic's work, they do monitor the condition of the field, and we're not going to just replace it because we hit year 10. We'll have the money set aside for whenever it ultimately needs replaced. Then we'll bring back to the board for a conversation at that point.
When it does get to be replaced, how much is that usually?
Is that what we say?
But the last time I think it was around $500,000,
Yeah.
600,000, give or take, somewhere in there. Now that was 9 years ago, so probably inflationary. It'll be a little more.
6, 7, I would imagine.
And we've actually, to Mrs. Dang, at your point, we've increased that allocation because of the estimated cost. And so we used to set aside $50,000 years ago on an annual basis, and then I think in the last couple of years, Dr. Bitts and I and Mr. Hoffman talked and decided that probably needed to move more to $75,000 a year just to make sure we're setting aside enough money for it. So.
Yeah, I was going to say that because I don't remember it being 75.
Yeah, that's a more recent year, just based on kind of current market conditions, I'll say, and the fact that it's been a number of years since we last replaced the one.
I think it's the second or third year of that $75,000 allocation. Moving down to the building maintenance side of things, these first two that are asterisked, those are two projects that we're going to ask you if we could move this along at a faster pace. I think in the last few years we've done with a handful of projects that we want to kind of get the ball rolling because of lead times on equipment and scheduling challenges, and definitely helps to get ahead of things on those. So those are the rooftop unit replacements at Upper Allen. It's 3 units. And then the next one is the Broad Street kitchen sewer line replacement, which we identified last summer when we were replacing the sewer line throughout the rest of the main building. The reason we didn't do it at the same time was it's kind of a different animal being in the kitchen, and we're already running out of time. So it was something we felt we could take a chance on and get through another year and sort of plan for it this time rather than reacting. But it is in need of replacement.
From a process standpoint, kind of Mr. Hoffman alluded to, typically we would bring the list to the work session for the board and then approve it and then start kind of speccing the projects out and getting prices. But given that we're at the work session, we have in the past, and with these two projects, kind of got the board's nod, knowing there is a timeline there for those two projects in particular, and knowing we want to get them done in the summer, we would just get that jump start with those two projects, working with our engineers. So.
Sure. And then we would bring any bid results back to the board for approval.
So the ask is not to just allocate the money and approve it to go forward. It's to begin the process, to go through the bidding process, to determine the cost of what it is, so that you can start it now and get it on the books, but you would still come back and follow the standard process
For
of,
the second review.
right, for the reviews of coming back and saying, okay, these are the bids that we received, this is our recommendation on where to go forward. So it's not that we would just give them the blessing to, there you go, spend the 750, but we give them the authorization to move forward, to start that process, and then still come back to us when the bids roll in. But it would just, because of that timing, because of especially like the Broad Street Kitchen, doing it over the summer and getting it done in the summer, that's one of the reasons for asking to move forward, getting the approval to move forward with the initiating the process.
Budgets aren't my expertise, but is that like a placeholder figure then?
Yeah.
Is that how I might think of it?
Right, it's a rough,
Rough.
a ROM, whatever term you want to use for it, a rough order of magnitude. It's a best guess based on previous type of work and what Mr. Kaufman thinks might cover the work that we have to be done. The rooftop units, we've replaced quite a few of those over, so we have a pretty good idea what those are going to cost. So.
Yeah.
That's a really round number, 500. Yeah.
This is our, I think, third year in that sequence of replacing some of these older, outdated units. And last summer, it was unfortunate they came in much later than what we were anticipating, so it's another reason to get started on this next school a little bit earlier if we can.
So I'd ask, before we move on to the other items on this list, does anyone have an objection to us allowing them to move forward with it, initiating that process at this point? Seeing none, we're okay with you moving forward on those items.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is the diving board purchase and installation at the high school natatorium. During the process of designing and approving the work for the natatorium, it was discussed we wanted to have that ability to put in diving boards at some point. So I think we are there. Our athletic director is looking to move forward with that. And we do have a quote, our proposal from the manufacturer who did the pool mainline to do this for us. So.
It's a good preview of the next agenda item. That
Yeah,
one is
right.
on the docket.
Yep, we'll talk more about that.
So I'm assuming that we're going to push for a diving team then, or kids that will dive, because
Yeah,
we've been taking a hit for that for the last couple of years.
So the timing of this was so that we would go through the installation process after this swim season would be finished. So then the end of this year, beginning of next year, they would be able to recruit for divers, and then next winter and so that.
And we couldn't actually get penalized until we have the diving board in
Correct.
place, right?
Yeah, once you have diving boards, then the scores count. But if you don't even have diving boards, then it's just vacated.
That figures for is it the 2 boards plus the base, the fulcrum? And
Yeah, that's everything. Now, under the tile, it was made and installed, the concrete was made that it's an easier transition to install those.
Right, I remember that.
Still quite a bit of work to do, and there was some grinding and grounding, so.
So these aren't the boards where the kids are jumping off.
They're 1 meter boards, so they're not high dives.
Just
No.
to be
Platform
sure.
diving.
Yeah, no diving.
Don't have to dive.
PIAA
Pool.
competition.
The 20-meter platform? No, not going there.
Moving down the list, Elmwood masonry repair. And this was an inspection that we had done this past year, similar to what we had done last year at the middle school. There's a few problematic areas in the building with masonry joints and absorption of moisture that there's probably 3 hot spots that we consistently battle and determine they're not roof leaks. Hence, we got the inspection, and we're looking to do that project this summer. Elmwood storage HVAC install. So this is the area behind where technology is at and food service and transportation. It's been kind of a problematic area for years and years as far as air quality goes. And, we lost some supplies and material that was back there due to air quality concerns. And it is always sort of a concern with the people who work in front of that space. So we would like to make the jump and get that place conditioned so that air quality stays safe for everybody and keeps our assets down there safe. Elmwood roof warranty renewal at Elmwood. So Elmwood's roof is a little bit different than most of our schools, where it's broken up into many, many different sections. And different years go by that those roofs are due for recoats. The roofs under this renewal proposition are due for a recoat, but they are in very good condition. So rather than spending a lot more money recoating these roofs, we would get the warranty renewal to cover for 5 years to buy us some more time before we'd have to do that. The High Peak roof replacement at the middle school is the shingled towers at the middle school. We're going on 25 years there, so that's about what you'd expect out of a shingled roof, and they're starting to peel off and get some damage, so we'd like to replace that this summer.
25 years. Oh my gosh.
Were you on the board?
Yeah, well, my son was the first class to go there at Christmas time.
And depending on what angle you look at it from, you can actually see some of the missing shingles that are blown off. Like if you're over toward the middle school field hockey field and looking toward the building, you can see, even at that distance. So that kind of tells you probably something we need to look at.
The next one is the track at the middle school. So this is in anticipation of having a track team at the middle school. We want to do some work on that walking track to help make that a better practice facility for proposed track team up there, which would include widening the track, new infill, and leveling that off, making that nicer for what they need for practice.
So this is a preview to a presentation coming up in a couple meetings where Mr. Pahanik will be bringing a proposal for the addition of a middle school track team. So here over the next several meetings with this specifically, there's the elements of, okay, you're seeing some of the CRF, capital reserve aspects to this. Then you also see the team request, which is in policy, how you request a new team. And then obviously there's some elements of it that'll be included in the budget to follow that as well. So all those will kind of merge together over the next few meetings for that proposal.
And though it says track middle school, that's actually the track area behind Upper Allen that is currently out there today.
And the last item on the list is a proposed site work project for our middle school to improve arrival and dismissal, traffic, and queuing lines, which we'll be discussing a little later.
Yeah, I think that one, we do have a couple guests. I think it's later agenda items, maybe we'll tack it there. But
Any questions on any of those items?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we will move on to item 3.03. We kind of had a preview of that, but at the diving boards for the natatorium at the high school.
yeah, I think Mr. Hoffman, you can keep us going there. But
So again, this is what was discussed in the past when designing the natatorium, and I think all parties involved are interested in moving forward with getting these diving boards installed, and got the proposal from Mainline to do that. So we're interested in pursuing that.
this is probably another example of just maintaining a timeline so that we can get the project done. And then how does that sync up with the swim season and what's going on at the high school? And so I think we've reached the point where our recommendation is to move forward with the 2 diving boards, the installation of the 2 diving boards.
So at next meeting, at the voting meeting, that would come for official approval. We have the quotes, we have the exact amount there that you see within board docs, and seek that approval.
So are these boards removable or are they going to be permanent?
They would stay.
You can lift them up, I believe, to lift them out of the way for certain activities.
this forward. Okay.
Any other questions? If no concerns, we'll move this forward for the next meeting. Great, thank you. Moving on to 3.04, which is the capital area, the Cumberland Ferry Area Career and Technical Center budget for the 2026-2027 year.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. A good budget document. I love a good budget document. We can talk about all the pages here, but I'll just draw your attention to a couple if we can. So if you would open the PDF, page 9 of that document. I'll give everyone a few seconds to navigate there. We'll be looking at page 9 and then page 10. So as you get to page 9, really this is just a good reminder of how we pay the CTC and how our share of the contribution is determined. It's based on a 5-year rolling average. And so they look at not only Mechanicsburg's 5-year rolling average, but in total, the CTC's total enrollment of the 5-year rolling average. And so then a proportion is developed for each school district to say, what share does each district pay to help fund the CTC operations? And you can see for us, that 5-year rolling average has increased from, in 2020-21, we were probably around 71, 72 students. I like to share with the board or with others that, you know, it's like, how do we have a fractional student? AEM is average daily membership, so depending on the kids coming and going, it's just based on that in that way. But you can see the good news, though. I think from about 72 in 2021, you can see how that has steadily increased to the point where we're almost at 99 students in 24, 25, and maybe even a little higher.
This year we're over 110.
Yeah, 110. And so I can remember when I first come to Mechanicsburg, we would send 1 bus out to the CTC, and now we send 2 buses. And so it's great to see how those programs are thriving, and we have additional students interested in the various offerings of the CTC. So that then fractional percentage on page 9, if you kind of roll that forward and look then at page 10, you can see kind of a 2-year comparison of the total costs for the CTC, but then how it's allocated among all the districts. And so you can see 25, 26, our contribution was about $615,000, and then taking into account the updated 5-year rolling average, that has moved upward to $684,000 for 26, 27. And so that's about an increase of $68,000 ish. And then we will take into account not just the CTC's budget here with the board we're talking tonight, but then ultimately as part of our budget process, looking forward to general fund, you'll see that we'll be adjusting our contribution to the CTC based on the budget that they've adopted and they're asking for approval from the local school boards. So in terms of process then, a couple pieces. One, we would be looking for to potentially move this forward to the February board meeting to approve it, as the CTC is also looking for approval from all of the member districts. And then the second part of the process is, as our own general fund budget proposal unfolds or is developed, we'll be putting those numbers into our own general fund budget, which we'll talk more with the board then in March.
How many seats do we have there? Or John, can you give a certain number?
Yeah, so it's the easy answer to that is our quota right now is at about 114.
Okay.
That the way our seats are figured out, though, it's kind of a 2-prong calculation, because there's the quota, but obviously that doesn't take into account what seats are available in specific programs. So we're right around our quota. I will tell you that one of the challenges that we continue to talk about as superintendents, and I believe the JOC continues to talk about as well, is how do we balance the AM and the PM better? Because for us, we are a fairly large district. When you look at the way they calculated it is the number of 10th, 11th, and 12th graders that you have in your district, and compare that. We are the 3rd largest out of all those 13 school districts when you look at 10th, 11th, and 12th graders at a district level. But we're in the PM where most of the districts are sending their kids. those districts that are in the AM, there's a number of districts that are half our size, but actually have a larger quota and have more seats than what we have in the PM. So obviously a change in that would benefit us significantly, especially when we had last year 70 students who applied and didn't get into the CTC. But obviously any change in that would inevitably hurt some other districts because there's only so many seats. So it's a debate we continue to have.
But I also think it's like, you know, kids are asked to pick their first, second, or third choice of curriculum.
Correct.
And what is the percentage of our kids getting their number one choice in the afternoon? And like,
You know, it varies. Yeah.
but I always know that's a big concern too.
But they're also in the process of expanding and with the addition that they're having, which will result in some of the programs expanding as well. So hopefully we'll be able to take advantage of that expansion and some of the other programs that they're looking to bolster over the next couple of years. So hopefully.
Oh, I just know when I sat on this board, I don't know, over 20 years ago, it was like, you could hardly send anybody there, you know, we were begging people to go there and we were not hitting, you know, sending 40 people and paying for, you know, 80 or something, and so it's a blessing, and I'm so glad that our kids are taking advantage of it and, you know, participating because, you know, it's a great path for a lot of kids.
Going forward, as a board, there are a couple of, you know, we approve our budget, but we also have to review the capital area intermediate unit budget and the CTC because of the fact of what we contribute to each of those. So in the next month or so, we'll have the capital area budget brought forward as well and see where that lands as well. So just a couple of different budgets that besides our own that we have to be concerned about going forward. So, okay. Any additional questions or comments on the budget from the CTC? All right. If not, we'll move into 3.05, which is the construction change orders.
Yeah, so I would draw your attention to first the change order summary. And so I always like to share as a frame of reference for this discussion, as we move through all of our construction projects, we maintain kind of a 5% corridor for change orders because we knew that, you know, as much as we've worked very closely with Crabtree Rohrbaugh and our engineers to try to identify everything that we know as part of the renovation process, but even like a renovation at your own home, there's sometimes unforeseen circumstances, and so that's that 5% budget corridor that we've allotted for. And so in this summary, this is a good temperature check to say across all of our projects, how did we do with respect to change orders? And so I like to look at this document because it provides a good 50,000-foot view of that. And so when you look through all of the individual projects, you can see we're largely in that 2%, 3%, 4% range. And I would submit have been doing very well with change orders. Frankly, a tribute to a number of people involved in that process. Mr. Hoffman is very involved in that process. Mr. Kastner, as you remember, was our construction manager for a lot of these projects, deserves a lot of credit as well. Mr. Harris, most recently at the high school, helped in some of these conversations. And so, again, a good team effort to try to manage change orders as thoughtfully as we could. So when you look at that, it's like I said, a temperature check to say, how did we do against the total? Within that, though, there are some additional individual change orders that need to be approved. And so the next two documents, the middle school stair tower and the high school project 2, really are change orders as we kind of wrap up those projects. And so by way of reminder, on high school project 2, if you look at the very last column, anything with a date in the board approval column had already been reviewed and approved previously. And so really from a board perspective, what we would be looking at is anything that doesn't have a board approval date. And that's really bottom of page 6, top of page 7 for the high school. And then for the middle school, you can see it would be all of the ones actually listed there because those had yet to be reviewed. And so in terms of individual change orders, we have Mr. Hoffman here as well. We can talk through any questions that the board might have with respect to any individual.
Are we nearing the end of, do we think we're nearing the end of these projects where we're going to see these change orders wrapping up and not necessarily coming again?
Yeah, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I mean, we're pretty much through what we plan to do, so I don't anticipate much more coming through.
Any questions or anything from the board at this point?
Keeping my mouth shut. For those of you that just joined the board, change orders are my least favorite things.
That and
We
additional
have
construction at
controlled them,
Elmwood.
huh?
That and additional construction at Elmwood.
From years ago, the numbers, the percentages are way, way better than they used to be, so. I do give a lot of credit to you and the other gentleman for being on top of things much more, so.
I know that's a lot that's been dropped on you. You can take some time and review, and if you come up with any follow-up questions, we can always reach back out as you're kind of looking through. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Let's see. All right, so now we're going to move on to facilities, and we're going to talk about the Mechanicsburg Middle School site project. This was something that a couple of months back we started to have a conversation about, and so for the new board members, this is something that we have started to talk about a little bit, and this is that next progression into, we talked about the need. Now we're going to start talking about what are some proposals or what are we envisioning. And I'll let them explain a little bit more, but it's around trying to ease the backup in the congestion at the middle school during those peak times, and a review of how can we improve the flow, how can we address not just the middle school, but also keep into consideration that we have Upper Allen is right next to the middle school. Anything that we tend to do to the middle school also sometimes will kind of trickle over in one way or another, potentially have some impact on Upper Allen. But a lot of it is to help ease the congestion and the flow and the backup, because at times that traffic can back up onto 114 on very, very heavy peak times. So just trying to ease on that. So.
Great lead-in. Very good. So yeah, we've got a number of goals as we begin to look at the project, and we've got Kelsey, of course, from Crabtree, who's been working with us as our primary architect on the last few projects. So we appreciate Kelsey being here with us. Of course, Mr. Hoffman, and then some friends from KCI. I got the right letter.
Correct.
Right?
Yes. Yes. You did a great job on that.
Thank you. Who have been helping us. Ian from KCI has been our lead project manager, but we have one of his colleagues here tonight to be able to assist and answer some questions for us as well. So,
That's correct. I am not Ian. I'll give full credit to Ian. He's been working on the project. He was unable to attend tonight. So my name's Chad Martin. I'm another traffic engineer in KCI's office over in Ross Moines there. So I'm the stand-in and hopefully can answer any of your questions that you might have.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Well, our goals here are to be able to look at the site, and as was mentioned, there's a historical perspective here to be able to share with everyone. As the projects have been done at the middle school site over the years, it's always been looked at in terms of traffic flow and parking of all three school buildings. So when we ultimately studied how many parking spaces did we need at Upper Allen, well, the parking spaces at the middle school were included in that study. When we were looking at how many parking spaces do we need at Shepherdstown, the parking spaces at Upper Allen in the middle school were included in that study. So there is a convergence of things here between the three buildings, and it really led to some of the issues that leads us to talking about how do we improve arrival, dismissal, and parking at the Upper Allen Township campus. So when we think about these three schools, of course, the middle school being kind of the paramount issue here among the three. So I'll take us through some of our goals, and then I'll pass the baton to some other folks. But we see a picture of the current site here at the middle school, and 114 is just out of view here, but this is 114 at the bottom. And of course, right now, there's also an entrance right here behind the logo. And our current conditions, which we'll take you through with some drone footage and some other aspects here in a minute, but currently, just from a big picture standpoint, this is where buses are located on the lot for arrival and dismissal. This is where the car riders do this big old serpentine through this lot. This is actually, if you haven't been up here recently, it's double stacked this whole way around this serpentine. And then it comes back out here, and then comes out here, and occasionally comes out here. And then this is all parking. So just to kind of give you an example of some of these goals, when we talk about improving existing traffic circulation patterns, at each of the buildings we've worked really hard through all the construction projects to be able to separate as much as possible buses, vans, car riders. And here at the middle school site, we've done that somewhat, but it still gets entangled. We need to work on making that better. Reimagine arrival and dismissal at MMS. So revision of current practices. We've had a few iterations of this. This is what it was a while ago, our current setup. But then during COVID and post-COVID, when we had lots more car riders at the time, we actually transitioned to this being bus riders. And both of these were car riders split by, I think it was alphabetical, generally speaking. But the issue then, the convergence between these three school buildings became all the more apparent as soon as you do something like that, because with this as buses, that took this lot offline. So now, parking was limited for Upper Allen with a growing staff, especially as you talk about related service providers and paraprofessionals and guests during the day. So we had people parking all over the grass over here at Upper Allen. And these spots, while there's plenty of spots here for on a daily basis, they're kind of useless to Upper Allen, because the reality is that if you're an Upper Allen staff member and you park here, you're probably going to be coming out to your car at the same time as this is full with a double stacked serpentine through. So you're not getting out. So people can't park here. So that created a lot of issues. We went back to buses, car riders, parking, and that has certainly alleviated some of the issues over here at Upper Allen and Shepherdstown, but not all. So you can see that's just an example of how some practices have been revised over the years, but we're still just kind of putting Band-Aids on things. We need something that's going to help the issues even more. So with that, there may be some site improvements that need to happen, so we need to try and identify that. But ultimately, the real main goal is to eliminate the vehicle backups, increase the queuing space on the site, and provide adequate parking for the campus. There really is right now, with this lot being fully operational, there really is on most days adequate parking across the campus. It's a matter of making sure that that parking that's there is accessible to the folks that need to get to it from the other buildings. Certainly for a large event, you're always going to have a situation where this is maxed out, and you're going to have people parking all the way over at Shepherdstown in order to get to an event here. It's a huge concert. Mini-thon, that's an extreme situation where I don't know how many kids were all leaving there at once. 400 kids leaving all at once. I am certain the queue was back out here on Market Street, and those are some of the extreme situations. But even on a day-to-day basis, we shouldn't be having an issue where this is backing up out here. We need to do something to alleviate that. So those are the goals that we looked at when we examined the site. You can see from a color-coded perspective, what I just described there in terms of the current conditions of bus pickup, car rider pickup zone, and then the shared staff parking.
Do we have more, is the percentage higher for parents to be driving to the middle school than the other schools? Because, you know, if the kids just were on the bus.
Yeah, I would say that actually, certainly that has changed over time, between, as I said, pre-COVID, COVID and post-pandemic, and then I would say that we're back to a fairly reasonable percentage of what we would expect it to be, and fairly similar to the other buildings. But obviously, there's a whole lot more students at the middle school now than what there were 10 years ago. So probably the same percentage, but just an increased enrollment.
Thank you, Dr. Bitts. Last couple slides was really to help acquaint, and I think Dr. Bitts did a nice job of articulating, the area where the buses are, and you can see them over there lined up. That middle lot, you can see the double serpentine through that, and then the parking over on the left-hand side, ultimately, of the building, which is shared parking for the middle school and Upper Allen. And as we watch this, I'll just point out a couple things before we start. This is from 3:20 to 3:45 on October 4th, and it is at 8 times playback. So we wanted to try to spare the board from having to maybe watch, 25 minutes worth of dismissal. And so we were able to work with our consultants here and kind of speed things up a little bit. So we've got it down to about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So I'll try to narrate that as we watch the video. So you can see as the parents are starting to come in, especially right to left, you can see them making that right-hand turn and coming in. Probably in the next 10 or 20 seconds, you'll start to see where that stacks up and really backs up into the turn lane. I'll give that a second to develop. But you can start to see them spilling out even at the light there with one car parked there. So as it goes then, as the video goes, they then are kind of going back through the turn lane. And this is one day in October. There are some days, depending on how busy the building is or how many car riders you have, it could back up even further than what you'll see here in this illustration. This was just a drone snapshot of this one particular day. The other thing I wanted to mention, as you see it backing up there to the right, heading back to the borough, there's also issues to the left where people are in those turn lanes, and that's backing up down the hill toward like the 7-Eleven and the Chick-fil-A. And so in those instances, once that left-hand turn lane fills up and then starts to back up, our buses get caught on the hill waiting to come up to the middle school. And so really probably issues on both sides of Market Street coming in toward the building. Again, you can kind of see the fast pace now, the double stack, as they're moving through the dismissal process. But once they pull up along the sidewalk there, parents and students are getting into their parents' vehicles and pulling away, and then the double stack serpentines through the lot. I think one thing to illustrate there too is you can see how empty that middle parking lot is, because with that double serpentine, because of the timing of it during arrival and dismissal, you have some reluctance to how much that parking lot's actually used. And even with the double serpentine, you can see how it kind of winds through that. And so how accessible is that parking? If you're parking in that lot, what's your level of comfort with the double serpentine going past your parked vehicle? And so I think there's a variety of things probably happening there.
I think the buses are driving too fast.
Yeah. You get a quick look. It is interesting. I've watched this a number of times now. And even when you step back and look at the totality of what's happening with the buses, leaving, the cars are coming and going. You can kind of watch even as cars are looping in through Upper Allen. It's a very busy campus. And I think that's one of the takeaways for me at a 50,000-foot view is how can we, as Dr. Bitts shared, manage the traffic in a way that we keep the buses separate from the cars, but an acknowledgement also of how do we efficiently manage parking on the site, because as he had shared,
Everything turned on.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think that's ever happened before. I see Mr. Noss is in the hallway, so we can grab him here in a second. Yeah, I think I saw him. Yeah. I think we lost the.
No, it should go to the next slide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, user error. I apologize, Mr. Noss. That's my fault. But ultimately, as you look at how do we maintain that separation for bus riders? Thank you, Dr. Bowman. For bus riders, car traffic, how do we manage efficiently the parking lots? Because maybe it's not so much about the entire number of parking spots, but just the location of the parking spots in relation to the building, but how accessible is it for staff or the community to kind of be coming and going as arrival and dismissal and other things are happening on the campus in the day because of just how busy that campus is. So I'll pause there quick and just see if there's any questions, but I also want to give KCI the opportunity with some of our other consultants here, Kelsey's in attendance as well, to talk through what our ultimate proposal would be. So any questions about current conditions?
You're not proposing to move the busing. The busing will stay, it's all more in the cars, in the parent pickup.
Yeah, and I think to Mr. Bradley's point, as we orient ourselves here with the picture, and I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, but we'll let you guys talk through this a little bit, but over here, this busing and all of the parking that's here, that would really remain unchanged from our perspective. The conversation we'll have tonight about the site is more about this front middle lot. What do we do about the side lot? And is there an opportunity to also add some additional parking over there, which I think would better serve Upper Allen. But interestingly, as you look at the proximity to the middle school fields there, I think also provides you opportunities to, families, students, whomever that are coming to those events. You have parking that's more accessible, it's closer to those fields. So that's an added benefit, I'll say, to the conversation we've had as we've developed.
Does Shep have any parking issues or?
Right now,
Because like,
right now Shepherdstown is in pretty good shape. There's actually quite a few spaces out front here. There's many more spaces out front here than what Upper Mountain has here. And then this lot is able to have quite a few along this as well. In fact, right now, what we find is that there's some Upper staff that actually park in this lot as well. So Shepherdstown's in pretty good shape.
I only ask because if we're looking at two schools and there's the third one sitting right there, we should make sure all three are working at capacity.
I think what we'll see is by alleviating some pressures over here, that will allow some of the Upper Allen that's over here to go back over to Upper Allen lots, so to speak, and free up just a few more spaces for sure.
So, like Greg had already mentioned, I'm guessing, is there a pointer on this middle button?
I'm not sure.
There's a laser pointer at the top.
Oh, top, yeah.
Nope.
Sometimes on the screen it gets washed out, I think.
Like I was clicking through too many. Oh, so back to that. Like Greg had said, as far as buses go, those really would remain unchanged there, using the lot on the right of your screen. As far as vans would go, that would, and the recommendation would be to go back to, I guess, the COVID era, where they would have loaded in the back of the building. So they would use the lot where the buses are, but go around the back of the building, load, and then come around clockwise, counterclockwise, around to the lot there at the top, and then use the main access drive. So the biggest changes you're seeing there on the conceptual drawing that we've got overlaid over the aerial mapping would be to the parent pickup and drop off. So a couple of the changes that we've made to that, the lot in the middle would have the double stacking around the outside. So similar, not quite as serpentine as previously, and I can go there if it helps a little bit. So the pickup and drop-off area would still be along the front of the building. We've got space for about 12 or 13 cars in a single file line there. Back at this point is where you would start to have the double stacking. It would loop around the outer part of this lot, extend all the way up along the rest of that lot, and then come all the way back down, ideally staying around this area or less so it wouldn't affect any flow. Theoretically could go back to the signal if necessary. So a couple of the changes that would be involved as part of that reconfiguration. This lot, you would lose some spaces because of the need to have enough width to double stack cars through there. And then the main change would be at the existing lot up there to enable that double stacking and still have a lane going out. You would lose some of that parking. So to offset that then would be the creation of the new lot there. As you can kind of see a little bit of the ball field peeking out underneath there. That's where the new lot would be, that essentially would come close to offsetting the loss of parking between this lot and this lot. So the numbers are really tiny on there. From an overall standpoint, I believe there was around 221 spaces in these two lots. With the combination of the three now, you would be at, I believe, like 215 or 16, so it would be, plus or minus about 5 spaces. That's kind of the general concept, I guess. Is there any initial questions on that?
Yeah, I don't know when people are coming in here, where are you making them go all the way up there and come back down?
Correct.
Okay.
So the intention would be to use all of that space. So some of the advantages of that would be, instead of where you used to have to come up here and then it would start to queue in here, or say if buses were trying to access, everybody from a parent pickup and drop off would be ideally north of that entrance. So you would keep all of this free. You wouldn't have as much mixing or relying on people to basically give courtesy gaps of turning in front. You would have the queue north of that main access drive, so you would leave that free for the buses, vans, anybody else that would still be able to come in before the queue starts, still on the back side there.
I guess what I'm confused about is I don't see an arrow going, when you go straight up, how you're looping around that back parking.
So it's a little tough to see. It loops the whole way up to the back parking lot, all the way at the top of the lot there. And then it starts single file, and then right at the top, where the buses would come out at the top stop sign there, is where you start to get double stacking, and then loop the whole way around.
It actually was a creative solution. I think Kelsey was the first to throw it out there. It's similar to what we have at Elmwood right now. And in terms of the campuses, they're somewhat similar issues, that the school and the lots are so close to the main road that there simply isn't much space in front of the school for queuing to happen, or at least adequate space for the number of cars we have. So what is happening at Elmwood, and similar to what's being proposed now, is, okay, so if this isn't enough space for queuing, then how do we use the rest of the campus to support some of that queuing as well? Which means, okay, well, let's send cars to the back of the campus and then back up forward. And that way, I think the queuing capacity is like double ultimately
So
what it is right now.
Right, so previously there was space for about 60 cars in that main lot before it started to get to the access. I believe what we were looking at, we have a space for 102 before you get to the stop sign there at Upper Allen Elementary. You'd have space for another 8 or so between that stop sign and the main access drive, and then you'd have space for another 10 before you got down to the signal. So you'd be at maximum of 120 before you would start to impact Market Street there, where previously you were hitting that a lot quicker.
So a couple of proposed changes are the lot on the ball field would be new. You'd be reducing the lot at the back end that goes out to the environmental center to cover that. You'd be reducing or changing the configuration of the current staff lot so that you can double stack. I know at the high school we have the bar, we have the bars that prevent parents from going a certain direction during time. One of my concerns would be someone coming off of Market Street and still trying to make where you have that, the first red line, kind of doing, right, coming in and trying to go out that way. Are we would we do anything to prevent them during the peak time and force them up that way? Because if I were in a rush, I'd be one of those parents that would take that quick right, hoping for the quick left, and trying to circumvent that.
In some early drawings, we even talked about, do we close this off, that completely by grassing it over, that sort of thing. We like still having these here as a possibility for evening activities and that kind of thing, where you don't necessarily need people because they're not queuing at that point. But right now, already, they cone this off every day. So we could look to do something similar here. I think we're back and forth on whether to actually get a bar to move across or not, or just go with cones. But yes, the idea would be that these, during arrival dismissal, would be inaccessible to.
Because if I remember the video, some of the buses come down and go right and some go left.
Correct, yes.
So you would still, if you were to do anything to block that off, you'd prevent the buses, especially at dismissal, from coming out.
Yeah, we would just want to do it here.
Right.
Across.
Okay.
Yep.
So, since how does it impact getting rid of the baseball field? Who's that impact?
That field's actually pretty much grown over now. It's not used at all. So
Phys Ed doesn't use it.
the group that was consulted about this was Phys Ed, not specific to the ball field, but the grass space outside of the ball field. And that's still more than enough space for them to continue doing their Phys Ed activities in the remaining grassy area.
And I assume both principals were involved in those conversations and are aware of all these things.
Yep.
Does it change based on what you did there in that section where the double stacked, that parking lot?
This one?
Yeah, you mentioned that it really wasn't useful for the Upper Allen people because of people coming and going. That will still be true, but now they'll be able to park over there is the
Correct.
thought, right?
Yep, you got it.
Yeah, so the new lot on that side does at least give some space over there to make up for that, and it is, similar, if not a little bit closer to that system over there at the Upper Allen Elementary to get them close to there. Just to mention too, I mean, with this being for pickup and drop off, for events, if you did choose to utilize some of that queue storage as well, you would end up with more space than what you currently have, if there was a way to utilize some of that too.
Do you mean to park?
Right, to park for events, if you wanted to use some of that storage space. Obviously, you couldn't double stack it with vehicles, but you could at least leave a row on the outside if you needed to get some more space.
You'll see that a lot at Elmwood right now. The school safety officers will start using some of that turnaround all the way in the back and have some single parking or some angled parking in that space, directed by them.
And
So
this, I'm sorry, this is getting rid of some parking in the middle there, right?
Yeah, so the parking lot right now goes to about here.
Oh, okay, so we're really extending it back.
So, well, the parking lot starts here
Okay.
and goes all the way. The end of that is still back there, but the parking lot starts right at this dirt path.
So you're taking out about a half of the existing parking lot. It already goes all the way back to the environmental center area.
And so why do we have to make it two different lanes? Why didn't you just keep it parking lot? And make it, why does it have to be just because of traffic flow or safety or?
Yeah, that might be best
Cost
for
money to do
them
that.
to explain, but.
So primarily to maximize the distance and we could stack vehicles. Two, I guess maybe if you're asking the lower part of the lot, why would we be taking some of that out? So we'd be using some of that for the space, and what's left in the middle really isn't usable. So that would, as you see there, return into green space essentially to offset some of the extra pavement area that you'd be creating with the new lot. There really wouldn't be any way to access that if you tried to leave some of that parking on the lower half of that existing lot with as many vehicles as you're queuing around it now. You'd have the same problem essentially as what you've got in your lot there in the middle where people kind of get trapped.
But that's only when you're considering it for arrival and dismissal. If we were considering it when they have large groups there for parking, if it was not green, you could park cars in.
The
It's
problem,
not big enough.
the other problem that you run into is as soon as you leave some of this open you're ultimately opening it up for folks to cut the line. And suddenly you've got cars that aren't. So
Like Rick.
these, these median areas also help to force the flow that you're trying to accomplish.
Is there any thought of the people that are being picked up by their parents to be let out the door up there? Not the front, but, you know, the
Yeah.
side door up there?
We talked about, do we extend the drop-off area around here? Do we just have this being the drop-off area? So we talked about a number of those different iterations, those possibilities. Some of the issues are that this lobby area is much more conducive to a whole bunch of students leaving as opposed to these single doors out here. It worked during COVID when we had to, but those are just regular hallways coming out. The other issue is that you're never going to get away. If you try to have this all be drop off up here, there's no reason for these folks to sit here and these kids not to get out of their car to come over here. And really one of the goals isn't to speed up the actual drop off process. Once they pull up, that goes pretty quickly. It's the queuing part that's the issue. So we did look at those possibilities, but it just didn't make sense.
So did you say we have about the same number of parking spots?
Just about, I think we're like 6 less than.
And do we have enough parking spots when we have big, I mean, not including for Minifund, but we have enough parking spots for big events there? And using, you know, the other ones too.
For our largest events, they make it work. I don't think we can build this for our large events. I think we
And
have
that's
to stay
typical.
cognizant of it, but.
That's typical for every school that we've run across. I mean, you try to, and it's the same way, you know, we try to build roads for, you know, to hit the peak hours, but at some point you can't build for everything. So trying to size appropriately for a normal day is typical, and then when it's a large event, you know, you've got additional staff, you've got folks working, directing people. It's just more of a you know, unique situation where you typically don't try to build for that. You look for your normal day.
The reality is, for our biggest events on the campus, what the school safety officers end up doing is they'll end up opening this, because that's a double gate, and they'll park folks in here. They'll use the Shepherdstown playground over here to park. So they find a way to make it work, even for the largest events with the number of spaces that we have. And it's pretty rare that they have to even use all of those particular options.
I think it's a good conversation, and one of the pieces is also kind of the law of competing interests. And so how do you manage the site in a thoughtful way? We're not necessarily just paving everything up under. Even if we wanted to, I don't know that that's that competing interest. To the front, if you look at the bottom, that's a retainage basin, and then up by the fields, we wanted to maintain some space for the middle school PE. But then you have the kind of the competition middle school fields there, and so all of a sudden, pretty quickly, we start to run out of. You know, we want to maintain those different areas for different programmatic reasons. And so how do we manage parking? How do we manage the kind of the flow of traffic, but then do it in a way that also we're not taking away some of these other areas of the campus, if you will.
Do we have to get approval for number of parking spaces? I remember somewhere along the line when we were doing building that somebody has to approve how many parking spaces you have.
That's where
outside of us.
That's where the counts across the buildings came into play.
And we'll
That
still
in
do
order
it.
to get those approvals, we had to count all of them. So yes, all that still comes into play.
So
And you have to have so many handicap spaces.
I know when my kids were going to school here, when you said back up on 114, there was always a backup here. You know, as many parents were trying to come up here. How are you stopping people from coming in here and getting all mixed up here?
It really doesn't happen anymore at this point. I think it showed that in the drone footage because there isn't the ability to get over here anymore. That used to happen when this was still parent pickup as well, but now that that's all isolated over here, it's not.
And I think one thing when we looked at with the group too, because we're able to queue the cars in a certain way and we're able to queue the buses in a certain way, you don't get so much of that crossover, because that's where the issues happen, right? You know, when cars back up and the buses get stuck, and then you're not able to queue them both into their separate areas, where with the queuing capacity of the cars, we're keeping them up, kind of up and to the left, away from those main thoroughfares. And then even in the video, you can see, even with all those buses in the lane, they're not backing up to, I guess, the little pork chop there where you're coming off Market Street, for lack of a better word. The traffic's not backing up there. We're able to absorb the buses into the loop, and then traffic can still move about the site. So I don't think that's I think a good part of this plan is queuing everyone in different areas and having the space to keep those main arteries free and clear for arrival and dismissal.
What about the blockers that block across there? Because now there are kids that go from middle school straight behind Upper Allen. They're gonna have to walk through all those cars coming and going. That seems like.
So right now, there's some students that come from these developments over here that walk over. Ultimately, there is a crosswalk up here to be used. That could be. Right now, you know, if this ends up being a crosswalk, then we could do something there as well. But
Because where do the Lindenwood kids walk? How do they walk?
that's over here.
I know, but
They-
Meadowview goes the other
Right.
way. On the dock.
Yeah, that would be more Meadowview.
Yeah.
So because this is
That seems
on,
dangerous.
I'm sorry.
That just seems dangerous unless we have somebody, yeah, they're middle schoolers, I guess. Well, we've had accidents in the high school too, so.
Correct. Because this is on our campus, we don't have to worry about PennDOT.
I'd say, so this is a.
Well, it's kind of, you know, how we spent a lot of time at Elmwood dealing with PennDOT and dealing with going through all the processes we needed to go through for PennDOT.
I'll defer to them in a moment for the technical answer. Yeah.
Further in the presentation.
I was going to just share from a process standpoint for us, this is where we kind of have a three-step process with our biggest building projects. And so the first one is kind of that initial concept that we'd like to work with our consultants and engineers to develop a concept. Then we move to an authorization to design, and then through that design period, we flesh a lot of that stuff out. And then we come back then with a more final proposal to get the authorization to bid. And so as I think about those three check-ins, we're kind of right at that. We did the first authorization with the board, the first of the three in the fall. We've got kind of the concept. We know there's still some things that need ironed out, regulatory and otherwise. We would then move this item tonight with the board's permission to the February board agenda for that second approval to move forward with design, answer some of those different questions, flesh out the timeline, all of those things. And then depending on where we're at with timeline, then obviously the third step. So I'll let you.
I can answer your question. To answer your question specifically to PennDOT, there's other review agencies, but PennDOT would not be involved in this one since the work that's being done is outside of PennDOT right away. So I'm assuming with the project you're mentioning, you would have been doing something at the entrance to the school within the PennDOT right of way, which is what requires you to get an HOP permit for either a driveway, an entrance, or so forth. But with it being done inside the site, PennDOT is just saying, nope, if you're not within our right of way, then we're not involved. Whatever you do off of our state highways is fine.
And I know in some places, and I'm not sure how all the fields work into the configuration, but you also have to be concerned with hard space and the amount of hard space that you have in comparison to your total footprint, and be conscious of that going forward as well.
And that will be, you know, one of the potential mitigating factors when we do get into ultimately the design phase and bring back a final proposal, is that current design may come back and be beyond those limits and trigger some things that we don't want to trigger. So the design phase, your approval to go to design is really for us to be able to go forward with this concept and really get into the nitty-gritty and sharpen our pencils to that price.
So what you're seeing here with the projected timeline shown there, like Greg said, the first portion of that process would have been the study that we just completed with the team here in between November and now. we'd be looking to move into the design into February and March. And then bid in April or May with construction in the summer. I guess the big caveat to point out there, kind of what Richard had mentioned, with the schedule there, there's still some of the assumptions that we've got listed. It assumes, so this wouldn't go through PennDOT, it would still go through Upper Allen Township. Now, from what we're interpreting the ordinance, it would not be a land development plan because there's no building included, there's no change of use. However, we have not met with Upper Allen yet. I think we're trying to get a meeting set up with them within the next week or two to see if they agree with that interpretation. There's an outside chance that they might say, oh, it was part of your other project, and would want to see a full land development review, which takes more time than just a simple stormwater management review like you were talking about. The piece that, yes, since we would be adding impervious area, there would be more calculations done to prove that our offset would be enough. Primarily, we would be assuming that we would be doing a stormwater basin kind of as a simple concept, similar to, but a lot smaller than what's out in front now. The other piece of that schedule that's shown there is from, I guess you would call it more of an outside agency standpoint, from DEP and the County Conservation District, there's something called a NPDES permit, National Pollutant Discharge. I'm butchering what we always just call it NPDES permit. The magic number there is 1 acre. If you're under an acre of earth disturbance, no permits required. It's a lot simpler. If you're over an acre of disturbance, then you go through the NPDES permit. There's a lot of projects that go through that just because of the size. Just from an administrative standpoint, it adds time to that. They have an administrative review. I think it's 30 days. If you get any comments, then you respond, and it's another 45 days for technical review. So you're adding months to the schedule on that if it's over an acre. With what we've got shown with this concept, we're right about an acre without, I should say, right about an acre with the new pavement and the area reconfigured in the center. If you start talking the basin, that would be needed in the upper part of the ball field, most likely, because of the impervious area, then you'd be pushed over an acre. So that would add time to that schedule than what you're seeing there. Realistically, you'd probably be looking at the next season then, if we're over an acre and an NPDES permit is involved.
And I think that's, I appreciate the detail, because I think it's some of that detail that we'll study as part of the design process to say, where are we, dialoguing with the township, where are we in terms of total disturbance with the acre rule, what's happening with the stormwater improvements, which also ties to the impervious, like how much asphalt you have. So you start to see all these variables, a little bit like a puzzle, putting it all together. So in that design phase, we would explore all that as we bring kind of the concept to life, and then try to cross-check that against all the different regulations to make sure where we are ultimately where we need to be there. So
Because I'm concerned about the timeline that you're like, the bids are out, April, May, and then you can't, who's going to be available to really start the next month?
Sure.
So are we trying to push this so that the construction's happening this summer?
We initially talked about it as if we go through some of the review process, the dialogue with the township, and we don't have any major issues in terms of stormwater or disturbance, then we were looking at as a possible summer of 2026 project, which is kind of the tentative timeline you see there. That's where some of those caveats are in there. We wanted to be very transparent with the board to just say, if we start to run into issues with stormwater or the acre of disturbance, or depending on the view of the plan, right, what happens next. And that what happens next is it might extend some of the timelines, and then it might be a summer of 27 project. Either way, we wanted to flush that out through the design phase, really come back to the board and say, here's the concept. That first step was the study, here's kind of the concept. Now, if we get the board's permission to authorize the design, there's even more work involved and more kind of technical, drawing, developing, and answering some of those questions through that process. So.
And if we go back to the capital reserve fund budget that we saw earlier, our estimate is somewhere between, a rough estimate at this point is between 750 and 1 million.
Yeah, exactly. And I appreciate your point there, Mr. Bradley, because that's kind of our placeholder, if you will, based on what we're currently seeing in the concept. Again, kind of the asterisk there is, do we need anything extra around stormwater, or if it, has any additional permitting requirements, that could change the trajectory of things as well. And so we wanted to at least put an initial estimate out there just to provide a frame of reference, as we kind of move toward a possible design. But we're also kind of entering the design phase knowing there could be some adjustments depending on how things go.
So you're talking about wastewater and all that, you're gonna need a land development plan, so.
Yeah, it's an interesting question you raise. I think about the parallel of, as we were talking about the acre just the other day, I was thinking about the parallel of the WAC Activity Center. So if you remember when we started all of our projects, that one we were able to keep under an acre, and we really streamlined the project and got to a shovel-ready project pretty quickly. But then all of our other renovation projects were certainly over an acre, and so then they went through those elongated processes, as the board knows. And so there's a couple pieces that we want to look at in the design phase and see if we can keep it, on that streamlined track, in which case then maybe it is a summer of 2026 opportunity. But if for some reason we get derailed in the process for any number of reasons, then I think we would just keep the board up to date and informed, and then we would just have to adjust accordingly.
So your ask at this point is approval to go forward at the next board meeting for us to approve going into the design phase and to actually create a more formal design and potentially start to answer some of the questions that we have.
So could you just go back to that picture again? I still have great concern about kids walking through 4 different cars, and hopefully, the only solution I see there is Mr. Yon gets somebody out there to manage the traffic, because the kids that walk down towards Meadowview will be standing there forever, or they'll be trying to run through the cars, and that's not safe. So I hope that somebody, I'd love an assurance that somebody's gonna make sure that they can be safe crossing there.
Well, you're gonna see this several more times, so.
I'll keep asking that question.
Points taken, and,
Yeah, if there's no sidewalks there, are there, like, keep kids on a sidewalk.
right now
Walk
it's
right
at
through
the
the
upper
traffic.
part of the lot, but yes, it's a fair point.
Could build one of your bridges.
Build another
bridge.
Walking bridge.
Tunnel?
Then we are gonna need land development.
They're actually doing the tunnel at a different school district.
We are actually working on the Pet Tunnel under the Carlisle Pike.
Under the Carlisle
that's-
Pike.
Correct, from CV underneath to the new development there, what used to be the M farm. So
Wow.
I believe there's been some public meetings on that already. I don't think I'm letting anything out of the bag here.
Sorry, I was thinking
Yes.
between their middle school and elementary school they have.
No, it's under the
It's
Carlisle
under the
Pike.
Carlisle
to the-
That's from Costco to the high school.
Right, you
So
could
the
get
kids
to
can go
Costco that way, but
$1.50 hot dog at lunchtime, so. All right, at this point, does anyone have, and we will definitely keep it as one of the items to continue to go back and consider the safety of not only those parents dropping off, the kids being dropped off, but equally the safety of the students that are walkers, which helps save us in some transportation costs, so it's important. So, any objections to moving this forward for consideration in the next board meeting to authorize us to go into a design and begin to see what options we have? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for the creativity and for looking at ways to try and improve this, and look forward to seeing this progress to something. What that'll be, we're not quite sure, but thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Stefan.
Thank you, Charlie.
All right. Almost done. We'll move into item 7, policy. 7.01, which is the second and final reading of the revised board policy 209.2, diabetes management. Dr.
The
Fuller?
first,
Again,
I should say the first.
Yeah, this one is pretty painless, really, when you look at it overall. It is just including some changes to the diabetes management regulations in Pennsylvania as far as school districts are concerned, and incorporating the diabetes fact sheet that's been provided by the PA Department of Health. So when you look at the policy, you're going to mainly see changes to the legal citations, and at the very end, there is one statement there about the district being required to provide that diabetes fact sheet to parents and students. That would occur through enrollment at the elementary level. Angie would provide that as part of the enrollment packet of information. At the secondary level, sixth grade more specifically, we would do that through an email blast and/or providing an information table at back-to-school nights at the middle school.
And I apologize, it is a first reading of this policy. That's why when I saw it, I thought, okay, we saw some policy, quite a few policies over.
Apologize for typing.
The second one was the one I really picked up that I hadn't seen before, but thank you, Dr. Bowman. Does anybody have any questions on that policy?
No questions, just a comment that, I mean, yeah, it's really important information to have. I've gone to the hospital with children who have type 1 diabetes with lack of information about managing that as, you know, at the personal level and also at the district level. So I think, yeah, this is good stuff. Glad to see it.
Thank you. Any objections to moving this forward for second reading? All right, hearing none. We'll move to 7.02, which is the first reading of the revised board policy 823, which is opioid agnostic.
Yeah, that's all right.
Am I saying that wrong?
Antagonists, yeah. So again, similar to the previous policy we talked about with tobacco and Juul, with vaping stuff, this is a change in this regard with the opioid antagonist terminology, replacing that of Narcan. So it's reflecting those changes. It also notes that the school, we're required as a district to have a note from a school physician to have a standing order to have those medications on our campuses and also be able to be administered by our employees. It also is a requirement for training, and only the people that are trained then are able to administer that any of those opioid antagonists. Looking more in the details of the policy itself, you'll see based on the PNN and the recommendations from PSBA, there were some new definitions added to further clarify drug overdose, what an opioid is, and then what an opioid antagonist is. And then realistically, the changes in there from our past policy now are just provide some clarity and update the vocabulary in there to reflect the inclusion of opioid antagonists versus that of what was there previously. And then it also outlines, as I mentioned, more specifically the procedures that we would go through as a district, more specifically our nurses, to go through to provide that, to once be educated about it, but also then provide the training to those identified individuals, which as of right now, we would choose to focus on our Code Blue teams at each of the buildings, which is our medical response team, if you will, at each of the building levels. So we would focus on those individuals for the training.
Thank you. You answered the question I was going to have about the Code Blue team.
And I'm sure the resource officer's been trained too.
Yeah, he's already certified in that.
I believe I shouldn't say that without certainty, but I think he even carries some.
He may, I think you're right, Dr. Mintz.
Do we only keep this at the high school, or is this high school, middle school, elementary buildings? Or?
It's at all levels, in all of our buildings. Yep.
Good policy to have, hopefully something we never need to execute or need to use, but a good policy to have, I think. Any questions, concerns, comments?
Manual training they have to do?
Yes. Yeah, credit goes to Mrs. Bridges, soon to hopefully be Dr. Bridges. But she was in charge of facilitating these changes.
Any objection to moving this forward for a second reading?
No.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Foreman.
Thank you.
And I think that wraps up the working session for January 27th. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.